YouTube, what is going on? How are you guys doing? Hopefully you guys have a are having a good day, and welcome back to the channel. I know I'm having a pretty good day, and today I have a little news update. I'm in the middle of some playthrough games that I'm going to make some videos on, so I'm not quite ready to post that yet. I'm still working on it, but I figured I would post this video about the Activision-Blizzard deal because it actually got a little spicy, and I'm pretty sure Microsoft just essentially acquired Activision-Blizzard. So let's just go over the details from what we know. So this is according to The Verge. Sony might be forced to detail its PlayStation exclusivity deals and how much it pays for blocking rights to keep games off rival services like Xbox Game Pass. The FTC has sued to try and block Microsoft's Activision-Blizzard acquisition and kicked off a legal discovery process, with Microsoft sending subpoenas to Sony to force it to reveal records, internal documentation, and emails from the company's PlayStation unit. This, of course, was reported on, I think, a couple of weeks ago, that we knew Microsoft wanted this back in January. So yeah, Kotaku spotted the FTC's chief administrative judge, D. Michael Chappell, has now sided with Microsoft's request for the details of Sony's PlayStation exclusivity deals, but they only go as far back as 2019. I believe Microsoft wanted to go back as like 2012 or 2014. So it's still a win for Microsoft, but it's not as deep as they wanted to go back. Anyway. But the point is, yeah, Microsoft has accused Sony of paying for blocking rights to stop developers from adding their content to Xbox, specifically Xbox Game Pass. That is a huge accusation, and let's be real, it's true. I mean, it's probably correct. We've known for a very long time that Sony has gone out of their way to, instead of buying studios like Microsoft has done, they'd much rather just make deals and hammer out some licensing deals so that the games don't come to Xbox anyway, and therefore they don't have to obviously buy the studio. Microsoft has been on a huge spending spree with studios, which is fine, but that's just how Sony is doing things. They have definitely paid for games to not be on Game Pass. And that's a huge thing, because look, it's one thing to pay for an exclusivity that's timed, or one thing to pay for I want this on PlayStation, I want this type of content on PlayStation first. With Call of Duty, they got some specific game modes that were exclusive to PlayStation for a year. That's one thing. But to pay big amounts of dollars to keep the game off of a service like Game Pass is a huge thing, because it tells you what they think of Game Pass. Game Pass is threatening to their way of business. Game Pass is a ridiculously good offer that only Microsoft could come up with and sustain. And by the way, the whole, before I say the word sustain, but Game Pass is indeed profitable. Okay, it makes billions of dollars on its own. For those of you who are still questioning whether it's profitable, it is. It's objectively profitable. But beside that, Sony is fearful of Game Pass. I mean, these accusations of Microsoft saying, hey, you're paying people to stay off of our service, they're probably correct. And we know this because we've seen games like Final Fantasy, we've seen games, like some others, like even Octopath Traveler 2 might be another case. We're not sure, but there's a lot of speculation that Sony may have paid to keep that off of Game Pass. Considering the first one is on Game Pass, you would think the second one would be on Game Pass, but for some reason it's not. Anyway, so back to the articles here. The other part of this, other than the accusation of paying people to stay off of Game Pass, we also have found out that Microsoft is set to win the EU nod for approval for this deal, which is a huge thing. Let me just explain the EU, the European Commission. So they were the biggest enemy of this deal in a lot of ways. They were the ones that you were going to have to win over completely. We knew for a fact that the FTC and the CMA, we knew they were going to go after this deal heavily. We knew that. And predictably they did. But the toughest one, that at least from all the reporting, from all these beat writers, they said that the EU is the one that's going to scrutinize this one the most. And the CMA, there were some, reports that the CMA and the EU's decision will be closely aligned. So the fact that it's coming out now that and this is, via Reuters and a bunch of other sources, but I use Reuters, Microsoft set to win the EU nod on Activision licensing offer. And so let's talk about that licensing offer. So when they say that they're set to win the nod, with the Activision licensing offer included, that means that the deals that Microsoft made with Nintendo, Nvidia, were the things that pushed it over the edge. Because this was never truly about, for the EU at least, This was never truly about protecting Sony or even Sony's concerns. This was more about the concerns that the EU had, which was cloud gaming and accessibility. They did not want Call of Duty to be exclusive, and cloud gaming is the future. At least that's what many people believe. Whether that actually manifests, we'll see. But people believe cloud gaming is the future, and Microsoft has the biggest cloud gaming infrastructure right now. So they didn't want a monopoly in the future to happen because of cloud gaming. But Microsoft nullified all of that by porting this to Nvidia, which they have their own cloud based system as well, and also even willing to port it to anybody else who had, like even Sony. If Sony does have their own cloud system in the future, that's like, you know, like a similar thing to Xbox, they will port it to, there as well, which is a huge thing. Nintendo immediately signed the 10-year deal, which was like not really surprising because, you know, for Nintendo, hey, sure, when the Switch 2 comes out either this year or next year, we'll take Call of Duty on there for sure. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm not going to play Call of Duty on the Switch, but let's see. Let's see if the Switch 2 is powerful enough. You know, Call of Duty might be a little bit of a convenience there. Maybe people will play zombies or something. We'll see. I don't know. But the point is, Microsoft wins the EU nod, which is a huge thing. I believe they're set to make their decision sometime in mid-April, which will be the confirmation of this deal. And then, so presumably the CMA along with the EU are going to be aligned on this. That, like I said, that was what was reported. The CMA and the EU were very closely aligned on this. And if the EU is saying yes, then the CMA is likely to say yes. And the FTC, well, that's a different story. So the FTC obviously is suing to block this deal. However, the FTC is going to have a very uphill battle, seeing as how other world governments already, Brazil and some Eastern world governments have already approved this deal, and then now the EU is set to approve it, and the CMA is probably to follow. The FTC doesn't have much of a case. On top of that, the FTC chairwoman, I believe her name is Lena Khan or Lisa Khan. Forgive me if I'm butchering her name there, but she also is dealing with some investigations herself as of recently, which was reported. So this is kind of a shaky ground for the FTC to go after this deal. On top of the fact that, hey, look, the FTC doesn't have a if their main concern is consolidation and monopoly, the concerns were answered. Microsoft is not only keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation, but they're bringing it to another platform in the Nintendo Switch and Nvidia and basically any other cloud place that you can play it as well. So there is no consolidation with Call of Duty, which, let's be real, I know I haven't talked about Overwatch or anything else, but this is mainly about Call of Duty because it's that big of a juggernaut, and that is the end all be all. So what does this all mean for Microsoft? Well, number one, it means that Game Pass is about to get ridiculous in value. Not that it wasn't already, but seriously, imagine every single Call of Duty game, every Blizzard game, Diablo 4 that's coming out this year, that could be on Game Pass. All of those games could be on Game Pass, and probably will be on Game Pass. And Game Pass already is a ridiculously good offer. With games like Starfield and Redfall set to debut on the service as well, Game Pass is going to be a must-have for anybody, whether you're on Xbox or PC, or even on your mobile. I know a lot of people play Game Pass on their phone or their tablet. Wherever you play Game Pass, you're going to have to subscribe to this service because the value is going to be ridiculous, like never before seen. On top of that, Microsoft is probably going to have a much bigger share in the market. So when I say share in the market, I mean consoles. They're going to sell more consoles. Straight up, the majority of gamers play games like FIFA, Call of Duty, Madden, 2K. And you know, a lot of people are going to say, well, wait, why would I stay on PlayStation to pay $70 for Call of Duty when I could just get a Series S or X and then get it for free on Game Pass? And I know people are going to say it's not free, you have to pay for Game Pass, but if you look at the year on end value for each year, it definitely is free. You pay $70 2 years in a row. That's $200+ or at least over 100. You know, I'm not great at math, but whatever. It's close to $200, right? That is $200, or at least close to. If you pay for Game Pass for a year, that's $120. If you pay for it for even just, let's say, 5 months at a time, that you're saving so much money on that. Plus, you're getting much more value in the other games that will come to Game Pass. Not even counting the third-party games that they've had in the past, like, you know, Back 4 Blood was a good example of a game that came to Game Pass day one. So, yeah. the point is, you're definitely saving money if you go to Xbox and play Call of Duty on Game Pass, and this is going to become a huge thing in you know, the Twitter sphere and just the gaming conversation of whether this is right. But ultimately, I think whatever benefits the consumer will always be right, and this objectively benefits the consumer. Now, what does this mean for PlayStation? Well, it means that their competition has just gone up to the highest extent it's ever been, maybe even past the 360 era, because now Microsoft owns Call of Duty, they own Diablo, they own Overwatch 2, along with Halo. They also own Doom Eternal and Quake. They have Bethesda. Like, Microsoft is now Microsoft is so big that they could not only host their own E3, but they could also host their own Developer Direct and Summer Games Fest. That's how many studios they have once this goes through. They will have like 40 plus studios under their umbrella. They already have like 26 now. You're adding in Activision-Blizzard, Treyarch, you know, Sledgehammer, Raven Software, Toys for Bob. Like, there's a lot of studios they're getting. It's going to be at least in the 30s. But the point is, Microsoft has so many studios and so much content at this point, and like, you know, games, that they could literally host their own E3 and Summer Games Fest just off of the stuff they own, not even third-party stuff. So Sony's going to have to answer in some way. I saw some fake rumor saying that Sony was going to buy Take-Two Interactive, and let's be real, Sony's not buying Take-Two Interactive. First of all, Take-Two's not for sale. Second of all, I'm not sure if they're liquid enough to buy that. Like, can they actually buy the entirety of Take-Two Interactive? And third, that deal is going to be heavily scrutinized, just like this one was, because they're going to have to come up with an agreement to keep NBA 2K, PGA, and WWE 2K on other services, along with some of their other games. So it doesn't make sense for them to go out and do that. And then Sony, you know, a lot of people are saying that they might buy Square Enix. At this point, they may as well. I'm not sure how much that's going to move the needle, because quite frankly, they're getting all the Square Enix games exclusive anyway. And you know the old saying, why buy the cow if you're getting the milk for free? But hey, Square Enix is a really good studio. Final Fantasy 16 is coming out. That game looks great, and it would certainly obviously bolster their first party lineup. But I really think PlayStation's gonna have to find a creative answer to this, and my answer and my guess would be PlayStation Plus. You're gonna have to start competing by putting these games day one on your service. Now, I know that's not what Sony wants, and they've talked about, hey, we can't afford to, but the fact is they can, because Game Pass is affordable. And it's not only affordable, it's sustainable, and they make billions of dollars. I mean, seriously, Game Pass makes billions of dollars. So that money can then be reinvested into the games. If Sony, you know, if they're worried about, well, we're not going to make money off of this, trust me. People will sign up for the highest tier of PlayStation Plus if they find out they're getting the next Ghost of Tsushima game on PlayStation Plus, or if they're getting Death Stranding 2 on PlayStation Plus day one. But, you know, that's my take on the situation. I mean, this is blown into some huge, every day we're getting new quotes and shots fired and all these different things. We'll see. Look, Microsoft's not out of the woods yet. This still has to land, and until it lands, you know, it's still going to be a shaky ride, but it looks like Microsoft's going to be able to close this deal finally, and I just want this whole thing to be done by the summer so we can all collectively move on, because it is a bit exhausting just seeing all the discourse about this and the conversations and the podcasts and all that stuff. It gets to be a little bit much when it's just people throwing rocks at each other. It's a little crazy. But what do you think of this? Microsoft is set to win the EU nod for Activision-Blizzard, and they could get the CMA nod because they're closely aligned soon to come. So what do you think? Is this a good for you? Do you subscribe to Microsoft Game Pass? What are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below, and also stay tuned for my next video. It will be a playthrough of a classic. It'll be another retrospective. I'm not exactly sure what, because I'm also playing Super Mario, the 1000-Year Door, the Paper Mario, and I also was playing Metroid Prime, the original version, on a GameCube emulator. So we'll see which one makes the cut. And maybe there's another one. I don't know. But with that being said, thank you for checking out this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace. Enjoy the rest of your day.